Good morning, everyone. Stand up. They are, they are, they are. They are, they are, they are. I like that you're mimicking my gesture. I actually would like you to do this. Put your hand up here and pretend that your head is like a steering wheel where the ignition goes and your hand is holding the key. I want you to start the car, and when we go, they are, they are, they are, I want you to turn on the descent down just a little bit and keep it forward, like the car is starting, but you're going to keep it in that position so the energy is still there. So let's try it again. Ready? They are, they are, they are. 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 All right, now we're going to do cascade. I know you're all used to the moving parts when we reach our notes, but what I want to happen is when we get to the top, sopranos hold do, altos sol, tenors mi, and basses the low do. And when we reach that chord, I'm going to cue in the pooey crud warm up, and I want you to keep your hands here the whole time and keep tall vowels. Ready? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. My dog's name is Pooey Crud. Great. This time we're going to do it again. Use ma instead of solfege. So that way when we get to my dog's name, you're already set up. You just need to maintain that shape. So, ready? Dog's name is Pooey Crud. One more time, make sure you're emphasizing those consonants. My dog's name is Pooey Crud. Ready? Dog's name is Pooey Crud. Thanks. So take out Ave Verum Corpus. No, stay standing actually.
Yeah, let's make them suffer. I mean, make them work.
It's all in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the package, I think. And I want you to look at the soprano part. The first interval, the first two notes you sing, should be familiar because we just did them like a minute ago. And I want you all to sing from, we're in D major now. So use that key motion, but instead of having an actual key, I want you to have the little like car startup button. So the notion is there, but you're not actually physically making the motion. You're just pressing that button that gets you there. So starting on this one. Ready and So I just want you all to sing. Let's do ma again. Just keep the ma syllable, and everyone sings soprano part. Just the first two notes. Ready. Cool. So from here, let's just all sing the soprano part up until measure 10. Right. So starting on this note, on ma, ready. So now can we have the ladies sing the soprano and the guys sing the bass? Or actually, let's have the guys sing the tenor. So you're both starting on A. Ready. All right, can I hear just the soprano part again? Just the ladies. Ready, and so I hear ma, and then I hear something else. The correct is ma. Can I hear you do that again? Ready. Great. All right, so let's do that again, and guys, come back in on the tenor part. Ready. Awesome. I'm gonna stop you there. Let's do the guys sing the bass part, and the ladies sing the alto part. So now we have D and F. Ready. Alright, I'm gonna stop you there again. Let's all do our own parts. You guys seem pretty confident sight reading this. So let's see if we can go from where you guys all come in up to measure 10. Ready, and so one of the things I really like about this piece is how much it lends itself to interpretation, and that's because it's an older piece. There's not a lot of marking. There aren't a lot of markings written in. There's so sotto voce, which means under the voice, but that's like and adagio. Those are the only two real like verbal markings, and from there it's all based on how you interpret the text and how you interpret the punctuation that comes with it. So I know one of the common practices is when you see a comma, it's typically treated as a breath or a lift of some sort. In this case, I don't feel that all the commas represent breaths, but I would like to try and add a lift after we say Ave, Ave Verum Corpus. Right there, I want to lift. And I would also like a lift right at the end of where we stopped at measure 10. I want you to treat that like a dotted half note with a eighth tied to it and an eighth rest. So can we try that from the beginning again? Ready, and So if anyone had to guess why I didn't take the comma, treat all the commas as a breath, why would you think that?
The comma after ave is just because it repeats the word, not because there should be an actual.
Yeah, so the words lend themselves to the phrasing. There's not like a whole lot of room for interpretation between like where the words should be grouped. Yeah? Okay, thanks. Sorry, I thought you had a question.
Next time.
So the other thing I want to look at is shaping. So with the lifts and how the words are grouped, there's also kind of a flow to how we should get louder and softer. So if anyone had to guess, the first two measures would be crescendo, decrescendo, both. Anyone have a guess as to how, or maybe not a guess, just how would you interpret those first two measures?
I'd say the second measure would decrescendo because it's descending chromatically.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about the first? Do you think anything should happen there or just stay kind of the same level?
Maybe crescendo.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I have too. So let's try that. Let's crescendo the first measure and decrescendo the second. And then we'll go from there. Ready? That a lot of you kind of naturally crescendoed through the second part, and I agree with that. I think that feels pretty solid and pretty natural. So we're gonna go on from there. Let's try from measure 11 up into 15. No, let's just try and finish out that phrase. So 18.
Can you just pause?
Yep.
I normally don't do this the first round, but you have 4 minutes left. Are there things that you still think that the first half aren't quite there yet?
Let me hear it again. Let's sing from
The reason I ask is because, remember, one of the things of a make a sale lesson is that you want them to leave them with some success.
Okay.
If you add on something that is completely new at the end of your lesson, that's going to be the thing they remember.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and listen to it again. I've got the clock paused. So.
All right, sounds good. Let's sing from beginning to measure 10 again. Ready? Blend sounds very.
So I just not to stop you. Are you going to go on, or are you going to go back?
I think I'll just stick here for the sake of time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a point where you're just going to kind of go up. I have other things on my plan. I'm not going to get to them.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. I'll let you keep going.
Thanks.
You got 3 minutes.
All right. So the blend was really good there. I think we could add a little more energy to our singing. So just kind of remember that ignition, that car thing. I want you to kind of think about the energy that goes into a car. Like when a car starts up, it's like super loud and kind of annoying even. I don't want you to be super loud and annoying, but I want you to have the same intensity as a car that you just turned on with your ignition. And keep that ignition kind of just like in the front of your memory when you're singing this. So let's try that one more time. 1, 2, here we go. So, does anyone have? I'm just thinking about the interpretation part of this. There's a whole lot that can be done, and we're gonna end up doing more as we continue to practice on this in future ensemble practices. but one of the I personally feel like you can either really love this song or really hate it at a glance, and that's understandable. It's kind of slow and old, and that's I can agree. I can understand why you would think that way. However, I like to picture this song as like a canvas, like a blank canvas, because of how much is like not there compared to some traditional choral music. And so I like to think of it as like something that you have to nurture and like interpret for yourself as a group. It's not just going to be me giving you, oh, let's do this, this, and this. If we kind of come to an agreement together on how this should sound, I think you'll all become a little more invested in it as time goes by. So I understand that this piece is a little bit draggy right now, but I think you'll all come to love it as time goes by. So let's just sing it one more time, and just think about that, and think about like the potential that this piece has for future rehearsals when we kind of build on what we already know. So. Ready? And on that 5 chord, I'm going to leave you with that.
Cool. Great. Give me a hand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's so much to what you're doing that is on the right track. So good for you. If this were just a straight up make it better lesson, I would be like, yeah, you're doing so many things right. Like, you did the whole part whole thing, which is, do you know what whole part whole? Have I mentioned whole part whole? Very simple. He was listening to sopranos and basses. Sopranos were flaking out. He took the sopranos out and worked the sopranos, fixed it, put it back. Whole, part, whole. I mean, that's really just great. That's just great rehearsal technique, so really smart. Sometimes you kind of talk over your own instructions, so we didn't know where you were or what you wanted at times. So, and just generally speaking, you talk too much.
Okay.
You're just chatty. And so you have a lot of good things to say, but there comes a point where we don't want to hear them. And I realize the irony of me standing up here talking right now. But say less by doing more. It's like page 7, everybody's soprano. It's not page 7, whatever the hell it is. First page, third bar, everybody's soprano. 2, and as opposed to doing, like giving other instructions and so on and so forth. It'll just be frustrating. I love that you just like stand up and go. I think that's the way to do it. Just be a little bit more polite about it. Stand up. You were just a little. Just throw a please in there. You're fine. No, it's fine. Stand up.
Energetic.
I know. But that's the point. Is it's like everything can be read in shades of gray, right? Everything can be read. You can see high energy as kind of like overly intense. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of a matter of, yeah, and I love that we get to see some of your goofy. I think that's always good. I love that when you stop that you always have something to say. Except for the points where you didn't. And it was really obvious when you would stop and immediately have something to go on, and then the moments where you would stop and go, processing. Okay, now I've got something to say. So there were moments where you were able to process while you were working, and there were moments where you weren't able to do that, or maybe something was distracting you, and so on and so forth. Were you aware of those moments?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, yeah. So, and I think it's pretty clear that the pacing gets affected by that. So just be careful. I would challenge you to find opportunities to dovetail transitions from things to things. For example, while they are taking out finding their music, give them something to do.
Okay.
I don't know what that thing is because I'd have to actually reflect on it. But what's something that you could have what's something meaningful that you could have them do or focus on or think about or have an activity or just some kind of little question or I don't know, something that you could have the ensemble do while they're doing the menial task of getting their music.
Could you even just play through the soprano part on the piano?
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for while you take out your music, here we go. Okay, you could even model it up here. so on and so forth. Anything that just keeps, there's just at no point are there those pauses, those pregnant pauses. I think your analogy and gestures were great. Be careful, just you, when you take a breath, it's just a little kind of uppish, and so you want to make sure that you just be conscious of that. Okay, let's talk about warm-ups for a second, because you're running into the classic problem. What do I do?
Yeah.
Do I give them pitches? Do I give them breath? Do I show the gesture with them? Do I sing with them? Do I sing for them? And so you're kind of like going, all right, I'm going to give them the pitch, and then like, oh crap, I'm not where I need to be to show them to go. And you're kind of like jumping back and forth between your roles. Okay? So you have to establish for them what's their responsibility and what's yours. I mean, if you want them to be able to go, what was your warm? What was your warm?
They soldier. Or the other one.
They, what was it? They. What was it? They are.
Yeah.
They are. Was it they are? Is that what you did?
Yep.
Okay. So here we go. Ooh, I'm flat. Ready? I'm conducting like stupid. Here we go. Ready? They are. 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 Do. They are. They are. They are. So, I mean, you can take one equation out, or you can go, okay, they are. And I love that you drew attention. It's like you're doing the gestures. That's great. That's what you should do. Okay, so you'll hold them to that. But you can also go, okay, they are. Breathe. The problem with that is you end up being bent over and it kind of gets a little bit wacky that way. So you kind of have to pick and choose your role. You can't do all of them. Okay, just like conducting, you can't show everything. Okay, you can't show the altos moving while the sopranos don't, the basses do, and the piano does this. It's just not possible. You don't have that many arms. You don't have that many brains. Nobody does. Solfege would have fixed a lot of things. Solfege would never have let the soprano thing happen. Because they would have went, so, do, mi, and they would have went, so, they would have went right back to so. So just maybe kind of question whether or not ma is necessary. So I want to get to the big thing here. There's like in the back half, it was really good. So remember, the whole purpose of the whole purpose of a first lesson is to sell the piece. And you intimated that, and this is something you said at the end, and I quote, "It's draggy right now, but you'll come to love it." Okay? No. Your goal is to get them to love it today. Your goal is to do something today. So what about it will they eventually love? That's the question I have for you right now. What about it will they eventually love?
I thought of it as, like when I mentioned the whole canvas thing, how it's very, very blank. As like before it's marked up, it's just blank. There's not a lot of like dynamics and things like that on the page. So I thought that maybe that in that, like, as we go through and begin to interpret this piece, that it would be something that like they've invested their own like thoughts and like how they feel it should be.
Then there's your intro lesson. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? There's your entry. Not we're going to do that down the road, and today we're just going to get the nuts and bolts of this down. But your entry is like, we're going to do this 18 million ways. We're going to talk about why, and that's what makes this piece so. And you're going to get jazzed about that, and then at the end they're going to have some success. They're going to have a better understanding of what the whole piece is about, and they want to know the next phrase. I mean, that's what your goal is not do some of the crap today so that 2 weeks from now you'll love this. And I'm so glad you said it the way you did, because it allowed me to kind of point this out, that it's not about waiting. It's not about struggle through this now. It's about creating a lesson that takes advantage of what you think they will love eventually. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense, everybody? So I'm so glad that was like that. I love that you brought the analogy back and that you got a little bit silly with it, but you need to follow through. Okay. So if you thought the analogy was good enough with the gesture you got a laugh, which laughing is always great because it's disarming, and disarmament is exactly what singers need. They need to have their barriers down. Okay? But then they all went back into their shells and didn't move. So that's where you go, Likewise, when you spent a minute and a half talking about crescendos and decrescendos, and then you had them sing and you didn't get it, or at least you didn't get much of one, no way, You don't let that fly. Basically what you're saying is, not only is the stuff that comes out of my mouth not important, it's long, but it's not important. And we don't think that. I know you don't think that. It's important. So if you're going to take the time to talk about that crescendo and decrescendo and let Ashton tell you what to do, and tell you how to do it, then by gum, when Ashton says we're supposed to decrescendo everybody there, folks, Ashton didn't get her decrescendo. Do it again. So you've got to hold their feet to the fire a little bit. Don't be afraid of doing that. They're big boys, but they can handle it. I love that you asked how you would interpret it, because I think that's a great entry. Generally speaking, again, talk less, 7 words or less. If you can't say it in 7 words or less, there's a better way to do it, by either modeling, conducting, or gesture. Analogy. It's like starting a car. Okay? And all of a sudden, I've said exactly what you were saying without saying any words whatsoever. Okay? Or at least 7 or less. And what you've done is you've sped things up, you've made it more meaningful, because nobody wants to hear us talk. Just like you don't want to hear me talking. Questions? Comments? So say less. Good energy. I love that we saw some of these. I love that we saw creative. Definitely determined. You have so much to say. Hear all these things. It's great. It's great. And sell it sooner. Just go right for it. Okay? You seem a little dead today. Are you all right? Me? No, just you in general.
Oh.